Welcome to Whole Health Visions. Our program provides a platform for holistic health professionals. Our goal is to inform and educate our viewers on healthier lifestyle choices. I'm Heidi Martin, and today we're sitting with Cheryl Bagangan. I said it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You did, Heidi. Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much, Heidi, for inviting me on the show today. I really appreciate the opportunity. And so my business is Loving the Midlife Journey, and our mission is to help women to embrace more connection, adventure, and vitality in the midlife years and beyond. And I'm certified as both a health and life coach, and I'm also a yoga teacher.
You're a yoga teacher. Okay. So you are certified as a life coach. What's a life coach?
Mm-hmm. So it's funny that you should ask that, because the reason why I became a life coach was I was at a point where I was feeling like life was really kind of passing me by. And I was in my mid-50s, and I had made some really good changes around my health, which I can maybe share with you in a little bit. But I saw where I wanted to go, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And I was at a networking event, and I heard a life coach, and I was like, oh, what does a life coach do? And so basically what she did was really show me that I had everything I needed inside of me, but she helped me to kind of pull it out and give voice to it. Yeah, and then to make an action plan to make the changes I wanted to make in my life. So
what I love about the term life coach is everybody I ask what a life coach is, they have a different definition.
Yeah.
And it's because it seems like it's because each person comes from a different place and they're coaching people in their lifestyles in different ways. Of course it sounds very familiar to me because I'm in my midlife. So
yes.
If I came to you as a client, I called you on the phone and I said, Cheryl, I heard you're a life coach. I need help with, I feel like I need someone to help me because I'm supposed to be retiring in 10 years, and I'm not going to retire. I feel like I'm 30 years old. It's like the new 30, right? 50 is like the new 30.
Right.
I mean, I'm in my 50s, and when I think about what you said, I'm like, wow, you know what? I'm in my 50s and I don't feel old. I don't feel like I'm ready to stop doing anything.
Right.
I feel like I'm ready to start again.
Yeah.
So is that what you had to do, or?
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely love that. And so the three areas that I focus on are connection, vitality, and adventure. So if I could just talk to you about vitality first. Sure. I had probably hit my 50th birthday and realized that I was gaining weight, just was not feeling good about myself. One night was sitting on the couch after overeating a meal and was sitting there and thinking, something has got to change. And I had always loved bike riding, so my husband and I decided to go out and buy bicycles, and we slowly started riding. I remember the first time getting out, not even be able to do like half a mile, just completely winded. Oh. And that led us to finding a bike ride for a charity, to support a charity. And so we ended up doing a century bike ride together, 100-mile bike ride. And so that was a fantastic experience. And so after that, I started to then get into running, and then I ended up doing a triathlon, and then that led to other races. Then it led to a half marathon. And so the point I'm trying to make about that is, in terms of vitality, I felt that what you said, that I was feeling a lot younger, but at the same time there was still something else going on, and that is kind of where the connection part came in for me. So when I think about connection, I think about being connected to ourselves and also to others. And to ourselves, it's like, what are those practices that we maybe have in the morning that help us to really stay grounded in who we are, help us to really get a handle on where we want to go. And so it could be meditation, it could be getting out in nature, it could be journaling. So I help my clients to kind of figure out where they are in that piece of their life. And then getting back to vitality, I look at that as lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. And so then we would kind of explore all of those areas. And lifestyle is more like, how are you showing up for yourself and in your life on a daily basis? So maybe you're coming home at night and there's a part of you saying, oh, I really want to take a new class. But you find that you're coming home at night and you're sitting on the couch and you're binging on ice cream and Netflix. And so maybe there's not some congruence there. There's a lack of congruency with what you're saying and what you're doing.
Right.
So then maybe we have to look at exploring your values. So I appreciate your message. I think a lot of people our age feel that sense of, oh, I want to do so many things. And at the same time, I think there's a lot of people who feel isolated, who feel bored, who feel lonely, and maybe they don't know how to start taking care of themselves. And the funny thing about exercise is, the secret to exercise is finding the one that you like to do and doing it. It doesn't matter what you do, but you have to like to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not easy. It's like you may not like what you liked before.
Exactly.
Yeah, so bicycles, I can relate to that. Me and my husband just bought bicycles a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I love riding a bike. And it's nothing fancy. It's just a bike,
Yeah.
but it's something to keep me moving. Not 100 miles. That's pretty challenging. That's like in one day?
Yeah. No, it was actually 2 days. So we did 60 miles the first day. And the second day was sandwiched to Provincetown.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it rained. It was like I was swimming in my sneakers. It rained so much. And I had no idea those last 5 miles on Route 6 into P-Town. It was amazing. But that sense of accomplishment, being the age I was doing that, and I think, again, it's like it all kind of comes together. When I look at vitality and I look at lifestyle, exercise, and then attitude, say you're every night you're coming home and you're just feeling really depressed and sad, or you're snapping at everybody. So what's going on there? Like, what's underlying those feelings? And so we would work on that. And then nutrition, of course, we could talk about that all day, right? Because everybody has a different opinion about that.
Exactly.
There's so many messages out there. So I really work with my clients to think about a nutritional mindset that works for them. Women, unfortunately, are still at war sometimes with themselves and with their bodies and with food. So, what is it that you need to change nutritionally that's going to work for you? Let's talk about eating intuitively and how does that feed your body? So that's kind of that whole area. And then in terms of adventure, if I could just speak about that. Sure. I don't know if you've heard of Julia Cameron. She wrote The Artist's Way, and so she really believes that we're all very creative beings. And one of the things that she encourages you to do is to go on an artist field trip every week. And so what that is you just take yourself to a beautiful place, whether it's an art gallery, whether it's looking in a store of fabric, just something that really feeds your spirit in that way. And so I think when I talk about adventure, what I mean is certainly that, going out and really
jump out of airplanes.
And then getting to that point. So then figuring out.
That's the thing now.
Yeah, well, I personally could not imagine jumping out of an airplane, but maybe you come up with a bucket list. A lot of people have never really sat down and done that. I have a friend, and when I go to her house, she actually has a whiteboard. And her and her husband have their bucket list listed. And then, they cross them off as they go through the years. And so I think in terms of adventure, when you realize that maybe you have more years, less years in front of you than behind you, you really get to a point where you do want to start being really serious and thoughtful about how you're using your daily time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, to think of how when we get to a certain age we have to reevaluate everything and start all over again.
Right.
But it's most women have raised their kids at about our age. They've just finished booting them off to college and they're off getting married and they're going to have kids and then I think what you were telling me before made sense to me that now, what do you do? What's the next step? And so, and when you said making a bucket list, I think what we don't do with our lives, so often what we skip is ourselves. And so as mothers, probably fathers too, end up in a state where there are a lot of things they haven't allowed themselves to think about doing.
Right.
It's not just a bucket list. It's just like, all right, be creative. You've got to be more creative. You've got to find excitement in your life. Moving to Florida to die, which I heard somebody say the other day, I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm not going to stay in Massachusetts anymore. That's where we are, by the way. And I want to go somewhere warm, which I can totally relate to, and not too warm. You and I have both been to the Philippines, which is very warm.
Yes.
So someplace more, comfortable. So a lot of people go to Florida to be comfortable, and then they spend 20 or 30 years living, not doing anything. They just sit and watch television.
Right.
And so I think it's great to have somebody like you, who someone could sit down and talk to about, okay, let's look at what the future is like.
Right.
And you said something about in the mornings, and most of us, if you ask, don't have a morning routine. Except coffee and turn the computer on, check your emails, and I don't know, just like a mundane routine, as opposed to something that's going to help you make it less stressful during the day, make you less likely to binge eat during the day.
Right, exactly.
Just to give yourself like a sense of peace.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the rest of our lives is like a whole new life. I mean, my father's 89, and he
That's
retired
awesome.
in his young 60s, and he watches a lot of television, and he's great. He's a great guy. Him and my mother just sit and watch TV, and I don't want to do that. I want to go out and ride a bike. I want to go out and travel to places I haven't been and see the sunset again in Hawaii. I've seen it before, but just to experience things that are different.
Right,
And,
right.
start again.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right. A morning routine, sometimes I think that people do what I do in the morning. And again, I always had kind of these practices, but I think getting into kind of a dark place in my mid-50s, where, as I told you, I kind of had gotten my health together and I was feeling vital physically, but there was still something missing. And what it was part of my own mentality was that it was too late. I was thinking, like, you don't see, as you said, maybe perhaps a lot of women our age, really putting themselves out there, because maybe we don't know how to, or in terms of connection, maybe we've lost touch with friends, and so we don't,
Right.
it's not as easy, right, as we get a little bit
Right.
older to make friends. And so we really I was in this place that was really quite dark, and I was kind of the person I was talking about, who was coming home at night and binging on, Netflix, addicted to sugar, and I had to do a lot of kind of work around making peace perhaps with where I had come from. And I love what you said about maybe the dreams aren't exactly the same as they were when I were younger, but to come up with new ones. And today, when I wake up, I feel extremely vital. I feel like those four. It's kind of like a table, the lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. You kind of need all of those. I have kind of figured out, what works for me. And so I love when I work with a client and they have an aha moment and they have figured out something that works for them. And then I think with connection as well, there's such strength when women are together in groups. There's something so beautiful about that, where we have this capacity to be vulnerable. And once somebody says, I feel the same thing that you feel, all of a sudden, the floodgates will open and people will come up with solutions, and they might come up with a solution that you haven't come up with. And then I think when you talked about traveling or about perhaps bucket list, I mean, I've done little things. Sitting here with you is one of them for sure. 2 weeks ago, my husband and I went and we found out that there was beach volleyball on our beach. So we went and we played volleyball. I am not a sports team sort of girl at all. But we just had so much fun, and there's something about just setting these little goals that make you feel like you're a part of life. And, for anybody out there who's feeling like, life is passing them by, there's definitely, very little things that you can do to get started. And definitely sitting in the morning. Say you have your cup of coffee, Heidi, so making a conscious effort to just sit and maybe just breathe for a minute before you get on Facebook, before you get on your email, and just think about, where are you in your life? How is everything going? Where do you see yourself going? And maybe just start right there. And then in terms of movement, if you're somebody who's just has been on the couch, two of the things that helped me in the beginning, well, one was a goal. So when I signed up for my triathlon, I had the biking down and I knew I could run, but I absolutely hated swimming. I was not a swimmer. So I signed up for swimming lessons at the Y, and of course I was with a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, and but I took the swimming lessons. But when I set that goal, having the goal made it easy to then make a schedule. Right. So I think if you are somebody who wants to explore movement, even if you say, 3 days a week, I'm going to take a walk for 10 minutes. So that would be one thing, is to put it in your calendar. And the second thing would be to get your stuff together. So when you decide to go out, you're not running around going, where are my sneakers? Where's my jacket? So have everything by the door to make it easy for you. So yeah, I think that, there's all of these little things that you can do to start to feel like just what you said, which I love, that age doesn't really matter. It really is a state of mind, right?
Anymore. And I think that a lot less women would be having heart attacks, which is a big issue right now, if they were, number one, if they were moving, and if they had more peace, which would be the meditation,
yes,
or the just deep breathing or stretching, yoga. There's a lot of options. So where did you learn all these practices? How did you know about this stuff?
Well, it's funny. So ever since I was, a young girl, there was just something about self-awareness that I was very attracted to. And I went to an alternative high school in the 70s. And so I had a teacher there who taught me yoga. And that was kind of like the journey that started. I taught it then at a camp that I was in that summer. Then I was in the Peace Corps in the Philippines after going to college, and I taught it over there. And so it's been kind of a theme. I became certified many years ago, and so now I kind of incorporate it more. I see it as a practice that I can incorporate into my coaching. And when I think about yoga, to be honest, the thing that comes to mind for me is meditative stretching. So I loved what you said, just being aware, in the morning getting up and maybe just doing a full body stretch before you even get out of bed, and just take a deep breath, and maybe if it speaks to you, just saying thank you that you're here for another day, just starting the day with an attitude of gratitude. And then, again, if yoga is something that does speak to you, there's so many different classes. But if you can't get to a class, you could always, go onto YouTube and just find a video. I think it's a 5-minute morning practice that I serve with my clients, that if this is all you have, do this for 5 minutes. And I can tell you that it really does make a difference. Sometimes I only have 5 minutes. But yeah, and I think that there's so many billions of people all over the world doing yoga because it works. So it's definitely been demystified in a way where it really is accessible to everybody. And that's what I love about it.
So tell me about yoga, because as a Christian, I know that there's, I would say, misinformation for Christians about yoga, and that it can't be done by Christians. And I know as a Christian, I know that yoga for me is just positions and stretching and breathing. I'm not doing anything against what I believe.
Right.
So I think you can do yoga, whether you're a Christian or any religion. It's more of a physical, for me, it's a physical practice. It's beneficial in the positions and the breathing and all that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can go so deep with anything, right? And there are the 8 limbs of yoga, and the actual physical practice is one of them. But when you think about, the word yoga means to bring together, the mind and the body. And so the monkey mind that we work with is always somewhere else, right? It's either in yesterday or it's what I have to do 10 minutes from now. So when you come onto your mat, to even just use that breath to bring yourself to be here now, and then again to do the meditative stretching. So I really think any spiritual belief that you have, that it's all good and that it all can fit together. Yeah, definitely.
So, so can you just tell me a little bit about your growing up, and where you get, like, who you are and what, just so that our viewers know who Cheryl Bagangan is.
Bagangan, good job. Yeah, of course. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, so I grew up here in Massachusetts. Yeah, and then I think I told you, when I was 12, I saw the ad on TV for the Peace Corps. I don't think they advertise the Peace Corps anymore. And even at that young age, I was like, I want to do that. And it was always in my mind. And so then I went off to college in Maine, and I got a bachelor's degree in counseling. And right after that, when I was a senior, I applied. And I was stationed in the Philippines, and I know you and I have that connection. And I stayed there, and that's where I met my husband. And my husband's from the Philippines. got married over there. I had my oldest daughter there, and then came back and had my youngest daughter over here. Yeah, and so for years I was in kind of the nonprofit sector. So I worked in group homes, I was a victim advocate, I worked for Head Start, I worked in preschools, and then that kind of segued into, on the weekends, I would do a lot of work in hospitality to make extra money. So there was this inn where I was a banquet waitress, and I really liked that kind of, being around people in happy occasions. There's just something about the energy of that I really like. So I did that for a long time, and all of a sudden I was doing all these extra jobs, and I was still kind of doing preschool and teaching yoga and doing stuff like that. And then my husband and I found out that there was this inn that they were looking for somebody to manage, and we took over that inn. This will be our 10th season.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing that for 10 years, and in the midst of that, I've offered retreats for women at the inn. I've taught yoga on the beach, which was always a dream of mine. We're right across the street from the beach. And this will actually be our last season of doing that. And then, we're kind of looking forward to a really exciting new chapter. And so in the midst of all of that, I've always been somebody who was really, really into growth, self-growth, and self-awareness. Just always wanted to study. I've taken, Thai yoga massage, and I've taken something called Phoenix Rising yoga therapy. So different kind of yoga practices, just wanted to learn about them. And then a few years ago, I heard about a place where you could go and learn Vipassana meditation, which is the loving kindness meditation. And it was a 10-day silent retreat. So you show up to this beautiful place out in Western Massachusetts, and you get there, and everybody's chit-chatting, and it's all lovely, and you check in, and they take your phone and all of your stuff, and then you have dinner. That could create a
little anxiety at first, right?
Yeah, and then you have dinner,
phone.
And then they say no phone, no writing, no reading, nothing.
Reading.
Just you and learning this type of meditation.
What's the place called?
For 10 days. I think it's the Vipassana Meditation Center.
Oh.
Yeah, and you look it up. It's all over the world. And so for 10 days, you get up at 4 in the morning with the bell, and you meditate, and then you go and do a group meditation. Then you have breakfast. Then you do a group sit, as they call it. Then
Are you allowed to talk while you
meditate. No, everything's completely silent. Yeah.
Okay.
So the point I want to make about that is there's something about it was, by the third day, you're like, oh my goodness, what have I signed up for here?
Yeah.
But there was something about being completely detached from everything that you kind of tell yourself about who you are and all of the outside things that we use as distractions. Yeah.
Yeah, no phone, no TV.
No.
You're bored. You gotta, and as a Christian, it would be very beneficial spiritually, I'm sure, because you could talk to God. No one's going to know you're talking to God.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
There's your strength, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to know, I'm very curious as to what you did in the Peace Corps.
Oh, so in the Peace Corps, I was a community health volunteer. So I helped write grants to build actually clean water, portable water system, and then I started a daycare. I helped start a little library, and then also a feeding program to feed the kids who were at the daycare. And then I had a colleague who was from, so long ago, I think he was from Belgium. He was such a great guy. And him and I, we started to teach them teach the people in the village where we worked how to make soap so they could make it and sell it to make money.
And this was the Philippines?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What part of the Philippines was that?
So it was in Mankayan, which is about 4 hours north of Baguio. Yeah.
Oh, it's north of Baguio.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really up in the mountains. And when I was just there for 6 weeks, and again, a part of the whole midlife journey, being able to find whatever it is inside of yourself to do what you have to do, the strength. For me, it was leaving my children, and I also have 3 grandchildren now, and traveling, all the way to that side of the world. And then when I got there, to just really be open-minded to anything. And again, not thinking about, what age you are and not putting any limitations on yourself. Right. My husband and I went up to Banawi, which is where the rice terraces are, the 7th, one of the 7th. I don't know if it's still the 7th wonder of the world, I'm not sure. But we actually hiked the rice terraces, and that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then to just watch, talk about strength. You know, I don't know if you know how they plant rice. It's like one thing at a time. It's like you take one little husk at a time and put it in the water. So it's very labor intensive. So just to watch that happen was amazing. And then we got to, at the very end, the reward were these beautiful hot springs, and then next to it, a freezing cold river. So we would jump from the hot springs into the river and then back into the hot springs again. Yeah.
Like shock your system.
Yeah, and so that experience from then until now, I think, you know, I've been on this journey where I've really learned that I alone, or all of us alone, create our own reality, right? And so in this time of our life, it's really easy, I think, for many women especially, to just say, oh, it's too late. I can't change. I'll never be able to run a block. I'll never be able to ride a bike. I couldn't travel. You know, all those things, all those kind of limitations we put on ourselves. So I just really am somebody who wants to like kind of help people bust through the limiting beliefs that they might have around that. You know, that it doesn't matter how old you are, that, you know, the quality.
Doesn't matter what people say.
Yeah. And they've done studies, and baby boomers really are looking for a renewed sense of purpose. You know, they're looking to be healthy. They're looking to be healthy physically. They're looking for more authentic connections, you know, with themselves and with other people. And so a lot of our society, unfortunately, especially because of social media, it's not supported. You know, you can have 20,000 friends, but do you really feel like you have a friend kind of thing?
Right.
So it's figuring out for yourself what works for you individually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, so you're working with women who, so what's the message if you were to speak to the audience or to our viewers, and what would be your message to anybody who's feeling that midlife identity crisis, or just feeling like down, and maybe they're eating ice cream in front of Netflix at night, and they don't recognize themselves in the mirror when they look in the mirror.
Right.
What would your advice be, and how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. Thank you, Heidi. So, excuse me, my advice would be to definitely create a support system. So even if it's just finding one friend who you can truly be yourself and let that friend know what's going on. That's probably the first thing that I would do. And I absolutely would, you know, welcome speaking to anybody about their midlife journey, and your viewers can contact me right now through my email, which is lovingthemidlifejourney@gmail.com.
Okay, so that's the best way for them to reach you?
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you, Heidi.
And I'm hoping that we can keep in touch. Maybe you can be on the show one more time, or
I would love that.
Something else to add, we'll have you back.
Sounds good.
Thank you for watching Whole Health Visions. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you have a story you'd like to tell, please email me at wholehealthvisions@gmail.com. I'm Heidi Martin, and as Mahatma Gandhi once said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Thank you for watching.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.